"Dad, you can't come to my wedding." Those 6 words hurt more than any wound that 68-year-old Thomas Carter had ever carried in his life. He stood silently in the kitchen of his small, aging farmhouse in Cedar Falls, Iowa, holding a faded invitation in one hand and the phone in the other. For a moment, he thought he had misunderstood. "Son, what did you say?" On the other end of the phone, there was a long pause. Then came the words Thomas never expected to hear. "I said I don't want you there. Not at the ceremony. Not at the reception. Not in the pictures." Thomas looked around the kitchen that he had repaired with his own hands. The old wooden table. The chipped coffee mug his son used every morning before school. The small picture on the refrigerator of a little boy smiling beside his father. That little boy was now a successful businessman preparing for a luxury wedding in Chicago. And he was ashamed of the man who raised him. "Ethan, why?" Thomas whispered. His son sighed. "Dad, please don't make this harder than it already is." "Harder?" Thomas asked. "I don't understand. You don't fit into my life anymore." The words landed like a punch. Thomas closed his eyes. For nearly 30 years, he had worked 2 jobs, skipped vacations, and worn the same winter coat because he wanted his son to have opportunities he never had. But now his son looked at him like he was something embarrassing. "I'm sorry you feel that way," Thomas said quietly. "Just, please don't show up," Ethan replied. "My fiancé's family will be there. Important people will be there. Investors. Executives. People who matter." Thomas swallowed hard. "And I don't?" Another silence. Then Ethan answered. "You know what I mean." The call ended. Thomas slowly lowered the phone. Outside his farmhouse window, snow fell over the quiet fields of Iowa. The same fields where he had spent decades working from sunrise to sunset. The same place where he had buried his wife. The same place where he had raised his only son. And now, his own son was telling him he wasn't good enough to sit in the front row. But what Ethan didn't know was that the man he was leaving behind was carrying a secret that could change everything. A secret that would make everyone at that wedding question who the real success story was. 25 years earlier, Thomas Carter was not a wealthy man. He was a single father trying to survive. After his wife, Rachel, passed away from cancer, Thomas was left alone with a 6-year-old boy and a mountain of medical bills. He had 2 choices. Give up. Or fight. And Thomas Carter was not a man who gave up. Every morning at 4:30, he woke up before the sun. He worked maintenance at a local hospital. After his shift ended, he repaired farm equipment for neighbors. At night, he delivered food for a small restaurant outside town. Sometimes, he slept only 4 hours. But every time he looked at his son, he remembered why he kept going. "Dad," young Ethan once asked while they sat in their old pickup truck, "why don't we have a house like the other kids?" Thomas smiled. "Because houses don't make a family." Ethan looked confused. "What does?" Thomas tapped his son's chest. "This." And for years, Ethan believed that. He loved his father. He was proud of him. Until he went away to college. That was when everything changed. At college, Ethan met people from wealthy families. People who talked about vacation homes, expensive cars, and private clubs. At first, Ethan didn't care. But slowly, he started becoming embarrassed by where he came from. When classmates asked about his family, he stopped saying his father worked maintenance. Instead, he simply said, "My family is complicated." Thomas noticed the distance growing. Phone calls became shorter. Visits became rare. Then came the day Ethan graduated from business school. Thomas drove 6 hours to attend the ceremony. He wore his nicest shirt. The same blue shirt he had saved for special occasions. After the ceremony, he waited outside holding a small gift. A simple watch. Nothing expensive. But something meaningful. When Ethan finally walked out, he was surrounded by classmates. A young woman wearing designer clothes looked at Thomas. "Who is this?" Ethan hesitated. Just for a second. But Thomas noticed. "This is my father," Ethan finally said. The woman smiled politely. "Oh. I thought maybe he worked at the university." Thomas forced a smile. "No. I just came to see my son graduate." But that night, while driving home alone, Thomas cried for the first time in years. Not because someone insulted his job. He was proud of his work. He cried because his son was slowly forgetting him. Years passed. Ethan built a successful career. He moved to Chicago. He became the founder of a technology company that created software for hospitals. Magazines began writing about him. People called him a young genius. And Thomas watched from a distance. Every article about Ethan made him proud. Even when Ethan stopped answering his calls. Even when holidays became too busy. Even when his son only visited when he needed something. Thomas still defended him. "He's just working hard," he told neighbors. "He has a lot on his shoulders." But deep inside, he knew. His son was running away from him. Then came the wedding. Ethan was marrying Olivia Bennett, the daughter of a wealthy Chicago real estate family. The wedding was going to be held at a 5-star hotel downtown. Hundreds of guests were invited. Business leaders. Investors. Celebrities. Everyone who could help Ethan climb higher. Everyone except the man who helped him get there. The day after the phone call, Thomas sat alone at his kitchen table. The wedding invitation was still there. He opened it one more time. Inside was a beautiful card with golden letters. "Together with their families." Thomas stopped reading. His eyes filled with tears. Because he knew something was missing. His family. A week later, Thomas received another phone call. But this time, it wasn't from Ethan. It was from a woman named Claire. She was an attorney from Chicago. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes?" "My name is Claire Morgan. I represent your son's company." Thomas immediately became nervous. "Is something wrong?" There was a pause. Then she said something unexpected. "No, sir. Actually, I need to talk to you about something your son doesn't know." Thomas sat up. "What do you mean?" Claire lowered her voice. "Your son believes he built his company alone." Thomas said nothing. "But that isn't the truth." The room became silent. "What are you talking about?" Claire opened a file in front of her. "Mr. Carter, before your son launched his company, where did he get the original funding?" Thomas frowned. "I don't know. He told me investors believed in him." Claire sighed. "That's what he tells everyone." Thomas felt a strange feeling in his chest. "Then who funded him?" Claire answered. "You did." Thomas froze. "I'm sorry, what?" 20 years ago, you created a trust account for Ethan." Thomas slowly stood up. "No. That money was supposed to be for his education." "It was," Claire replied. "But after Ethan graduated, you continued adding money to it. Every paycheck. Every extra job. Every repair project." Thomas looked toward the old barn outside. He remembered all those years. Working late. Saving every dollar. Skipping everything for himself. Claire continued. "Mr. Carter, you didn't just pay for his education. You gave him the foundation for his entire company." Thomas shook his head. "That can't be right. Ethan never told me." "No," Claire said. "He didn't." A painful silence filled the room. Then Claire said the sentence that changed everything. "Mr. Carter, your son is about to marry into a family that believes he built everything by himself. But there is something they don't know." Thomas looked confused. "What?" Claire took a deep breath. "The most important investor behind your son's success is the father he refused to invite to his wedding." Thomas sat back down. For years, he had stayed quiet. He never wanted recognition. He never wanted praise. He only wanted his son to be happy. But now, he had a choice. He could walk away. Or he could finally let the truth be known. And across the country in Chicago, Ethan Carter was preparing for the biggest day of his life. A day where everyone would celebrate his success. A day where he planned to erase his past. But he had no idea. His past was about to walk through those wedding doors. 3 days before the wedding, Ethan Carter stood inside the grand ballroom of the Belmont Hotel in downtown Chicago. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Workers carefully arranged thousands of white flowers. The room looked perfect. Everything was expensive. Everything was impressive. Everything looked like the life Ethan had always dreamed of. He walked through the ballroom with his fiancée, Olivia. "Can you believe this?" Olivia smiled. "In a few days, everyone important in Chicago will be sitting right here." Ethan smiled. "Yeah. It's going to be unforgettable." Olivia looked around proudly. "My father says this wedding could open doors for your company. A lot of powerful people will be here." Ethan nodded. But then Olivia noticed something. "You seem distracted." Ethan looked away. "I'm fine." She lowered her voice. "Is this about your father?" Ethan became quiet. Olivia already knew. "He's not coming, right?" "No," Ethan replied. "Good," Olivia said. Not cruelly. Almost casually. "I just think it's better. Our wedding should represent where we are going, not where we came from." Ethan forced a smile. But those words stayed in his mind. Where we are going. Not where we came from. For years, Ethan had convinced himself that leaving his father behind was the price of success. But deep down, there was a small voice reminding him of an old pickup truck. A small farmhouse. And a tired man who always believed in him. Meanwhile, in Cedar Falls, Thomas Carter made a decision. He packed a small suitcase. Not because he wanted attention. Not because he wanted revenge. But because he finally understood something. Sometimes the truth needs a place to stand. He arrived in Chicago the morning before the wedding. He stayed at a simple roadside motel. The same kind of place he used when he worked construction jobs years ago. He didn't call Ethan. He didn't demand anything. He simply waited. The next morning, Thomas received another call from Claire, the attorney. "Mr. Carter, I need you to understand something." "What is it?" "The documents are ready." But once this information becomes public, things will change. Thomas looked out the motel window. Cars rushed by on the highway. People were moving forward. Just like Ethan had. "What do you want me to do?" Thomas asked. Claire paused. "I want you to think carefully. You have the legal right to reveal everything." Thomas smiled sadly. "Claire. I never wanted to take anything away from my son." "Then why come?" Thomas looked down. "Because I spent my whole life giving him everything. And I just want him to remember who gave it." The wedding day arrived. Guests filled the Belmont Hotel. Men in expensive suits shook hands. Women wearing designer dresses took pictures. Ethan stood near the entrance, greeting important guests. Everything was going exactly as planned. Until the doors opened. And Thomas Carter walked inside. The room became quiet. Not completely. Just enough for people to notice. Ethan saw him. His smile disappeared. Dad? Thomas stood there wearing a simple gray suit. Not expensive. Not flashy. Just clean and respectful. I'm sorry, Thomas said softly. I know you asked me not to come. Ethan walked closer. His face was tense. What are you doing here? Thomas looked around the beautiful room. I only came because there are things that need to be said. Ethan lowered his voice. You're embarrassing me. Those words hurt. But Thomas stayed calm. I never wanted to embarrass you. You don't understand, Ethan whispered. People here know who I am. Thomas looked directly into his son's eyes. I know exactly who you are. Before Ethan could answer, Olivia approached. She looked uncomfortable. Ethan, what's happening? My father decided to come. Olivia looked at Thomas. She recognized him from pictures. Oh. That one word said everything. Thomas felt it. The judgment. The disappointment. The same feeling he had carried for years. Then something unexpected happened. A man near the entrance walked into the room. It was Richard Bennett. Olivia's father. One of Chicago's most successful real estate developers. Everyone knew him. Richard looked at Thomas. Then his expression changed. Thomas? The room became silent. Ethan looked confused. You know my father? Richard walked forward slowly. I know him better than you think. Ethan frowned. What? Richard looked around the room. Then he said something nobody expected. 20 years ago, when my company was struggling, Thomas Carter was the person who helped me keep my hospital contracts. Ethan stared. What are you talking about? Richard continued. Everyone thinks money is what saves businesses. But sometimes it's one person's honesty. Thomas shook his head. Richard, please. This isn't necessary. But Richard stepped forward. It is. He turned toward the guests. Thomas was offered thousands of dollars to cover up mistakes made by my company years ago. He refused. He protected patients. He protected workers. And because of that, my company survived. People began whispering. Ethan looked at his father differently. For the first time in years. He wasn't seeing an old maintenance worker. He was seeing a man with integrity. Then Claire walked into the ballroom. She carried a folder. Mr. Carter. Everyone looked at her. She handed Thomas the documents. Ethan's face changed. What is that? Claire answered calmly. Documents showing the original funding records of Carter Health Solutions. The room went silent. Ethan looked nervous. Why would anyone care about that? Claire opened the folder. Because the first major investment in your company came from a trust account created by your father. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Ethan stared at the papers. No. Claire continued. Your father worked multiple jobs for decades. He saved every extra dollar. He never bought a new car. He never took expensive vacations. All because he believed his son would use the opportunity to help people. Ethan's face turned pale. Olivia looked at him. Ethan. But he couldn't answer. He looked at Thomas. You knew? Thomas nodded. I knew. And you never told me? Thomas's eyes filled with tears. Because I didn't do it so you would owe me. I did it because I loved you. Those words broke something inside Ethan. For years, he had chased respect from people who barely knew him, while ignoring the one person who loved him without conditions. The room was completely quiet. Then Ethan whispered. Dad. Thomas looked at him. I'm sorry. A tear rolled down Ethan's face. I thought you were the reason I had to work harder. Thomas shook his head. No, son. I was the reason you could start. Ethan walked toward him. Slowly. Like a child walking toward his father after being lost for years. I was ashamed of you. Thomas looked down. I know. I thought people would see me differently because of you. Thomas nodded. I know. I forgot everything you did for me. Thomas's voice became softer. But I never forgot you. And then, in front of hundreds of people, Ethan hugged his father. Not the successful businessman. Not the CEO. Just a son hugging his dad. Many guests wiped away tears. Even Richard Bennett looked emotional. Because everyone in that room understood something. Success is not measured by the car you drive, the house you own, or the people who know your name. It is measured by the people who stood beside you before anyone cared who you were. After the wedding, Ethan changed. He started visiting his father every weekend. He repaired the old farmhouse with him. They sat at the same kitchen table where Thomas once cried alone. One evening, Ethan found an old box in the attic. Inside were hundreds of small memories. School drawings. Birthday cards. Photos. And a letter. A letter Thomas wrote years earlier but never gave him. Ethan opened it. It said, "My son. If one day you become more successful than me, I hope you never forget this. The world may celebrate what you achieve. But your heart will always remember who believed in you when nobody else did. Never be too proud to return to the people who helped you rise. Because a person who forgets their roots can lose everything, even when they have everything. Love. Dad." Ethan held the letter against his chest. And for the first time in many years, he felt successful. Not because of his company. Not because of his money. But because he finally found his way back home. Months later, Carter Health Solutions announced a new foundation. A foundation helping children from poor families receive education and opportunities. And when reporters asked Ethan why he created it, he gave the same answer every time. My father taught me something. Your beginning does not decide your ending. But forgetting the people who helped you begin can make you lose the most valuable thing you ever had. Because sometimes the person you are most embarrassed to stand beside is the person who was standing beside you all along.